It looked great on Leave It to Beaver. A neat house, happy people, and a lesson at the end. People in America loved it. Ratings went up. It lived on through reruns. After a while, the movie brought the story back to cinemas and gained new fans. That bright picture, though, hid problems that the people who made it didn't want you to see. Hard decisions to make on set, pressure from the players, and a script that went too far. It was said in the studio rooms that one episode caused a lot of trouble. Some fixes were quick, while others were kept secret for years. It looked like the show was clean, but the truth was a mess. Come with us as we get a better look at the show, the actors, the drama behind the scenes, and the hidden information the makers hoped you'd never find out. The Boy Who Won the Hearts of Americans. It wasn't just a family show, Leave It to Beaver. It showed what life was like in the suburbs in the 1950s and early 1960s. The story. Jerry Matz played young Theodore Cleaver, the Beaver Cleaver, as he went through the ups and downs of childhood with his family and friends. In a way, the show showed what it was really like to grow up in a middle-class family at that time. You could relate to Beaver because he was innocent, interested, and got into trouble from time to time. He wasn't a perfect kid, which is what made him America's boy. We saw his feelings about girls change from not liking them to being interested in them as the show went on. He even had feelings for Miss Canfield and Miss Landers, who were his teachers. Each episode focused on a different area of his life, like school, home, or neighborhood. This showed how one boy's small adventures could tell the story of a whole generation. In America after World War II, Beaver's world was the place where all little boys who dreamed big lived. It's not a wonder that people still feel nostalgic when they think about this show after all these years. Behind the smiles and laughs, though, were some interesting tales of how the group got together. And how luck played a big role in making The Honest Audition, the show that changed everything. It wasn't the normal way for Jerry Mathers to get his part. Most kids would try to get directors' attention by being enthusiastic, but Mathers did the opposite, and it worked. He wore his Cub Scout outfit to his audition because he had a meeting right afterward. He told the truth when asked if he was excited about the part. He would rather be at his Cub Scout meeting than trying out. The directors, Joe Connolly and Bob Mosher, didn't see this as disrespect. They saw an honest spark that they couldn't push away. They hired him because he was honest, plain, and simple. What they wanted was a boy who could just be himself on screen, and that's what he did. Mathers had been in ads and small movie parts before Beaver, but it would be the most important part of his life. His charm came from the fact that he wasn't put together. And his story didn't begin in Hollywood. It began in a much less famous place. A trip to the store with his mom that made things different. But it turns out that fate can find you in the strangest places. It took place in a mall when Jerry Matz was only 2 years old. From being a lifeguard to a big brother. Wally Clever's big brother Tony Dow used to be a very different person before he became Wally Clever. He had never been on stage before, unlike Matz. In fact, Dow was a trained athlete and lifeguard who was found almost by accident. One of the most famous shows in America cast him after someone saw how good-looking and sure of himself he was at the pool. His story is even more interesting because this wasn't the only thing he was good at. Dow also won a title as a diver and participated in the Junior Olympics. He was young, set on being the best, and used to pushing himself to do so. The same focus made it easy for him to switch to acting. When talent comes in, all shapes and sizes, they say, and Dow showed that to be true. He worked hard everywhere he went, from saving lives in the pool to playing in front of millions of people. It was his first time acting, but you would never know it by seeing him on TV. The way he naturally got along with Mathers made their relationship as brothers one of the most realistic in TV history. People behind the scenes knew that being famous could be dangerous for young stars, even as their fame grew. And they did something out of the ordinary to keep them there. Behind the scenes, there are pearls, high heels, and lessons about life. While the cameras were rolling and America fell in love with the Clever family, most people didn't know about the real stories going on behind the scenes. The young stars Jerry Matz and Tony Dow were told not to watch the show. They thought that letting the boys watch themselves might make them cocky. The writers, who were also the directors, told us not to watch it because they didn't want us to get too excited. It was their way of keeping the kids humble, and it worked. While the boys were learning discipline on set, Barbara Billingsley, who played June Clever, was mastering the art of hiding a personal secret. Her elegant pearls weren't just a fashion statement. They covered a hollow spot on her neck, left by surgery. Even when she wasn't filming Leave It to Beaver, she wore pearls or scarves to conceal the scar. Yet, some viewers criticized her wardrobe, assuming she was trying too hard to appear perfect. Little did they know there was a reason behind her look. And while Barbara handled criticism with grace, there was another quiet challenge she faced: her growing sons. As Jerry and Tony grew taller over the years, producers asked her to wear high heels to keep the motherly height difference on screen. It was their small way of maintaining the family illusion. Meanwhile, Hugh Beaumont, who played Ward Clever, brought his own lessons from real life to the show. Before acting, he was an ordained minister who taught. It was easy for him to be a calm, fatherly figure on TV because he had spent years guiding people in real life. Every lesson Ward taught his sons felt real because Beaumont truly believed in them. Together, they created one of the most honest and timeless shows on TV, one that was built on honesty, heart, and a little bit of real-life experience behind every line. June Clever's hidden struggles on screen. June Clever always looked perfect on Leave It to Beaver. Her neat dresses, her gentle voice, and even her heels made her the perfect 1950s mother. But there was a funny truth behind that perfect image. June didn't wear heels to look glamorous. She wore them because her sons kept getting taller each season. The producers didn't want her to look shorter than Wally and Beaver, so they told her to wear high heels around the house. Imagine cooking. At the beginning of the show, she wore flats, but by the end of the 6 seasons, her heels were higher than ever. It wasn't about style. It was about keeping up the illusion that June was always in charge. She was, after all, the matriarch. The producers wanted to show her as a strong, elegant mother who stood above the boys, both literally and figuratively. It's funny to think about now, sons naturally growing taller than their mother, but back then, TV had to keep up a face. And while June smiled through it all, her on-screen husband, Ward Clever, had his own story behind that calm, fatherly face that wasn't as happy as it looked. Before becoming America's favorite TV dad, Hugh Beaumont was a minister. On Sundays, he taught moral lessons and talked about what was. His deep voice and calm personality made him perfect for the part of Ward Clever, but his personal life behind the camera wasn't easy. Beaumont lived in Minnesota and had to travel to Los Angeles to film the show. During one of those trips, tragedy struck. His family was driving to meet him when they were in a terrible car accident. His mother-in-law died, and the accident made Beaumont feel bad about taking the job in the first place. It was a painful memory that stuck with him. Even though he played a loving and wise father on TV, he struggled with his decision to join the show. He was also frustrated with how fame affected his career. Like many of his co-stars, he became TYP cast, which meant that people only saw him as Ward Clever. No matter how hard he tried, Hollywood couldn't picture him as anyone else. He was also unhappy about always playing second to the young stars Jerry Matz and Tony Dow. But Beaumont didn't let that bitterness show. He stayed professional. And as time went on, he found new ways to express himself creatively by writing and directing episodes of the very show that caused him so much inner conflict. Stories that came from real life. Hugh Beaumont wasn't just acting. He was also helping shape the stories people loved. He wrote and directed several episodes, including one called Family Scrapbook. In it, June finds an old scrapbook while cleaning, and the family sits together, reminiscing about their memories. It was a sweet way to look back at the show's history. But the truth is, almost every episode had roots in real life. According to Jerry Matz, producer Joe Connolly kept notebooks filled with stories from his own childhood and things his kids told him. Those stories became the heart of Leave It to Beaver. They were funny, touching, and sometimes embarrassing, just like real life. That's why people connected to it so deeply. Not only did the stories stand out, but the characters also changed in ways that were not planned. For example, Eddie Haskell was only supposed to appear in one episode, but the writers loved his natural charm and chemistry with the rest of the cast so much that they kept him for all 6 seasons. That's the kind of magic that can't be planned. And behind that magic was an idea that no one thought would work, a family show told through the eyes of a child. A show that reflected real people. At the time, most TV shows were told from the parents' point of view. Leave It to Beaver, on the other hand, focused on how kids saw the world, their mistakes, their curiosity, and their feelings. That's what made it so special. Parents could watch it and relate to their kids a little better. The actors' real lives weren't always so neat. For example, Barbara Billingsley, who played June, wasn't a housewife. She was a single mother raising 2 kids after her husband died. Her life had problems that her TV character never had to deal with, but that's what made her performance even more inspiring. She turned those problems into strength. Her son, Glenn Billingsley, once said she was just as caring, classy, and lovely as June Clever. Barbara said that the line between her real self and her character sometimes blurred. I think what happens is that the writers start writing about you as well as the character they created, she said. So, you become sort of all mixed up. Acting can do that to people. It makes them live 2 lives at once. One for the camera and one in the real world. For Barbara, both versions of herself became symbols. Tony Dow, her co-star, also went in a different direction later in life. He did everything from being a lifeguard to an Olympic diver to an actor to an artist. Dow showed that life after fame could still be full of creativity. Each member of the Leave It to Beaver cast had a story much deeper than what was shown on TV. The laughter, lessons, and love came from real people who lived through real struggles and turned them into timeless TV. Barbara Billingsley's life after June Cleaver. When Leave It to Beaver ended, she faced what many actors fear the most, being typecast. She had played June Cleaver so well that casting directors thought she was too sweet for any other role, which hurt her career for years. She decided to take a break and travel the world instead of waiting for a job. It wasn't until the late 1970s that she returned to acting. She finally got back to acting, and when she did, she proved that she still had it. In the comedy film Airplane, 1980, she played a passenger who could speak jive. That funny and unexpected role put her back in the spotlight and revived her career. It showed that Barbara wasn't just June Cleaver, she could also surprise people. Off-screen, she had already shown how strong she was by raising 2 sons after her husband died. That experience made her even more understanding of misbehavior, both as a real mother and as a TV mother. She often told the show's writers to make Beaver and Wallalai's mistakes feel more real, so her character's anger would feel more real. When she was mad at the boys, she would always come over with a script and object. I don't understand why June is so mad at Beaver. Being a mom in real life helped her get the TV part. A well-known and loved figure in history. As Barbara worked to rebuild her career, her co-star Jerry Matz, who played Beaver, was going in a totally different direction. Jerry Mather's unexpected trip to find Beaver. Jerry Matz wanted to live a normal life after becoming the likable Beaver as a child. So he quit all of his jobs in show business. For school, he joined a band called Beaver and the Trappers. After that, he went to the University of California, Berkeley. He finished from that school and went on to work as a commercial loan officer. He didn't go to Hollywood for more than 10 years. But in 1978, he chose to go back to show business, showing that the Bee still had more to offer. Even though he was away for years, he kept hearing strange things about himself. One of the craziest was that he had died in Vietnam. So many people heard the story that even his family got calls to say they were sorry. The truth is that Matz was in the Air Force.